The only thing that I would say, and I've been a critic, although I like the guys. I mean, Frank Reich and Chris Ballard are so on the right side of the media. I mean, Chris Ballard is 42 and 42.
Yeah.
He spent over, I think, what did I come up with? $400,000 or $400 million on quarterback. I mean, and here these guys are, and I don't want to look. I don't want anybody fired. Don't get me wrong. I've been fired as a coach. I don't want nobody fired. But the truth of the matter is, I look at these guys and I'm like, there are guys that are on the right side of the media, like Chris Ballard. They're 9-8. They absolutely shit the bed, and everybody in that organization is getting hired. Eberflus is hired. Assistants are hired, and I'm going, man. Was Flores on the wrong side of the media with this? Because I'm looking at Ballard and Reich, and they're considered gurus, and the numbers don't show it.
Well, and so here, there's another piece of that you're getting into that, and you get the tag of being a guru, you become a media darling. People in the media like you. This goes back to the whole, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame deal. It's the same thing that happened with Chris Carter, happened with Terrell Owens, where just because you don't like the guy, you don't cover them objectively and you don't cover them fairly anymore. And if you do like the guy, you find a way to excuse a lot of the things and excuse a lot of the issues. And I always try to put this disclaimer on it when I'm giving, any type of commentary. Like, I thought Matt Stafford always was underappreciated in Detroit. I'm glad that he is finally showing people what he can do on a big stage in Los Angeles and with a very quality coach and team. But I always say this, and I try to disclaim it like, hey, I know these guys. I played with them. They were one of my coaches. It's hard for me to look at this objectively because I know the man that's doing the job and I believe them. And maybe my judgment's clouded with that. But we live in an era now where everybody wants to pass off their own personal opinion as fact. And so when I get into this, I try to say like, hey, I understand that I might be a little more favorable. Here's why. And so at least I'm going to sit there and identify that I might have a bias for someone. I'd like to think that I don't necessarily have them against, but guys who you like, Dan, guys who you played with, you coach with, you want to see them have success. And so, yeah, you'll point out their failures, but you won't necessarily deem the whole person as a failure. And I think that exists now in the media far more than it ever did.
Boy, do I agree with that. I like, here I make fun of it. I call it Camp Ballard because they're smart. Like, they'll bring all the media out to watch highlights of Quiddy Pay, serve dinner. It's smart. But so I call it Camp Ballard, and everybody gets mad. Medias are mad at me. But there is a element of, all right. Let me go back to Flores. Let me get rid of that. Let me go back to Flores. Does it matter that he has a black general manager that fired him, a black assistant general manager, Reggie McKenzie's there as a senior advisor, African American? Does that matter in this lawsuit even a little bit?
To me, I guess, Stephen Ross is the owner. He's the ultimate decision maker. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and be able to tell you why people make decisions and pretend to be in someone else's mind and heart about why they're doing it. But I do, like, people look at this and they try to isolate facts and silo things, ultimately off. And they're like, well, they fired him because he was black. Well, you think that's the case? They didn't give him as many opportunities. You don't think Reggie McKenzie, if he thought he was a good coach and, other members of the front office are saying, hey, we think this guy's in a good spot, they're not going to go to bat for a guy who they're tied to, who they brought in, who they've been working with? Like, that's the one thing where I think that there is a little bit of separation in this argument, where you have people of color now in more front offices, I would imagine, than probably ever before. If you start looking around and you see the Miami Dolphins, and this is one thing, I don't know if it'll be cover for Stephen Ross or whatever, but he can look like, I've hired a lot of diversity. These are people that are informing me, that we're having these conversations with, that are my advisors, that are helping me make these decisions. And so, hey, they said, well, we recommend we should probably go in a different direction. That's just not me saying this. I'm not the only one involved in this. There's other people, and and I don't know his level of involvement, and maybe he's a dictator, totalitarian state down there. It's my decision. I don't care what you guys say. Or maybe he's saying, hey, you guys make the best decision. If you think give him another year, give him another year. Like, those are the things I'd really like to learn, because I really have a hard time believing that if the rest of the front office thought you should keep Brian Flores, and Stephen Ross is the only guy who thinks it should be fired, that those guys wouldn't speak up a little bit publicly, and you wouldn't hear maybe some leaks about, hey, we liked him in the front office. This was just an ownership decision. Because you hear leaks like this stuff happen all the time.
Yeah, I was waiting for that, Bobby. And I am, we're only a day in, but I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for, Chris Greer wanted to keep him. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be from Chris Greer, as you said. It can be from, an agent getting it to Schefter or I've been waiting for that exact thing that you just said. I have.
Well, and it makes sense. And like you said, it's not the general manager, assistant GM or a senior personnel assistant to the president, whatever, all these titles they have. It's not one of those guys holding a presser and telling it. You know this. You worked in the media. You were a coach. It's all of a sudden sources are saying, you get these leaks where, hey, player or coach talks to their agent. Their agent is tight with some of the media, and just these things just slide out. And it's just, there's a feeling. There's a feeling inside the building or inside the rooms. That's how they frame it now. And was it one person? Is it a lot? And and they just throw it out there without really any attribution, and it's correctly sourced, but that's how they do it to try to subvert things that people don't like are happening and they don't believe that they should be. And maybe that comes out here over the next couple of days, but we haven't seen it yet.
Well, Flores is alleging the other way. Flores is alleging that when he did get fired, all of a sudden, I think his quote was, I'm the stereotypical angry black man, according to sources in the building. You know what I mean? That's part of his lawsuit too. That the other side. Yeah,
we get into the sourcing stuff, and here's the one thing the NFL doesn't want. This stuff, they don't ever want it to get to the light of day. It's the same thing as John Gruden. They don't want to get any texts back and forth, any emails. They want to go to discovery on this. And so they're going to try to squash this as well so that no one can see that correspondence. And I would like to hope that people are intelligent enough in 2022 that if you are going to say these things, that they're actually verbal words that are being spoken, and then they're not being put on this thing and being typed out in emails, because that's when you get into discovery. And that's when some of these teams, they could really get in trouble. And that's frankly why he tagged the NFL in this lawsuit as well, because then that opens it up to all 32 teams and all the correspondence with everybody.